said Tim McCreadie is one of the best late model drivers ever. And in my opinion, he's better than Bobby and Ricky because he came through the years when you had to drive the damn car. Somebody said amen to that. Question, you did mention cubic inch. Sprint car racing, the motors are, I'm going to say, just about everything when you get to the national level. How much does I know we're getting late here. We're gonna start wrapping it up. But how much does big horsepower actually matter in super late model racing? Because I would assume with the suspension and everything, putting stuff to the ground with the big heavy car, a little bit more important than like a sprint car with a wing and it's just a dyno session basically.
Yeah.
How important is it?
Well, I'll tell you what's changed, which is kind of crazy, is so before they came out with the droop roll, where you had the chain with a hard like puck like we have to run now, and the decks get checked in the air. You were squatting cars, you were getting more rear deck height, the tires were softer, and the motors were really like on kill, and we were really getting them to where you had to go, if you went to Knoxville and showed up with a 426 or a 430, they call them, the new style motors are called high ports or spread bores or whatever. You just showed up with like a standard bore motor, you were in trouble. So a lot of that has changed because of the tires got a little harder. We lost some compounds, and then they went to a block type tire, which is just not as good as a tire as far as just getting into the racetrack. The rear decks came down, and all that stuff adding together just ended up the motors almost ran too good. So we've had to kind of go through and tune them a little different, but still in hot laps and qualifying, it is hard to beat extra cubic inch. And a lot of nights, Bobby has a couple of motors. He's got a 460, I believe, a 468, I think it is, from Vic Hill, and he does have a 430, but sometimes when you just put a 468 in, it's 20 more cubic inches, man. It's hard to beat that in 2 laps of qualifying. So the trick is what do you do with it come feature, and that's the rub, So we have traded off probably maybe better handling cars in the race for qualifying early, because like there's nights you'll see the crate cars will go every bit as fast as us. They have no motor and more downforce.
Well, so, for instance, like in the 410 world, they'll put the biggest hitter they can in the world in there, and they'll start the night. They'll qualify. They'll hot lap with that, with the rocket nozzles on there, and then right after qualifying, the crews are changing the nozzles, changing the headers, basically the stacks. Yeah. They're taking away 50 or 60 horsepower for the race condition. Can you not? Is there a similar process with the big motor?
Yeah, we don't do so much header changing or moving the collectors around, maybe as we should. We'll work carburetors, restrictor plates, dropping inserts in, like, is obviously probably a little bit like the nozzles, because you drop an insert in, you're controlling how much air is going to get into the intake, and that'll smooth the curve out or flatten it out, where you could, it's weird. It's not that you want to be flat foot in our division all the time. You want to have a car not move a lot. Like, it's just like anything. If you can keep your car up on the platform and not, like, everything's turned into like a timing device more than it is wedge or this and that. Like, so you go down in the backstretch and you lift, and if your car naturally can posture up quicker, you're just back to the gas faster. So then your corner speed comes up, and hence a faster lap. And that's kind of what our racing is the cars that seem to do that have a little bit of compliance. They move a little, but they come back up really fast. And like I said, then you can back your corner up and pick your speed up. And the motors are the same way. We tune them to help us do a lot of that. And maybe not as like I said, we're not taking headers off, but we'll maneuver the gear ratio and the carburetors, inserts, restrictors, things of that nature. That'll timing. I mean, we got a couple of boxes you can switch to the other box, which will knock 6-7 degrees of timing out of the motor, which will help it, and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're on tune with all that.
Well, I'm just trying to figure, why wouldn't you want to just bring the biggest, baddest motor all the time and just detune where you needed?
Sometimes you get to a place like the weight of the engine.
I was about to say that the balance of the car is big.
The balance of the car, yeah. It's like when I changed from Chevys to Fords a few years ago, the motor was over 400 pounds, and the Chevy was like 370. It was like 40 pounds heavier. It was crazy. Like, we went to Charlotte and timed right up front when you needed a good running motor and run second, and thought we had this thing handled, and then went to Screven, a little short, small, big quarter, small 3/8, and struggled with our spring curves and struggled with everything. And I think we could, by mid-year I was back in Chevys because of the weight and because of just the way the engine ran. So
so you're saying that plays a factor even in the cubic inch department?
Well, I'm telling you, that's where like some of the old school stuff comes around. You got to remember, Bobby Pierce come up in a crate. So anytime you can get his motor to maybe run more like a crate, he might have more comfortability. So maybe early it's fast, and then his dad, who's been doing this a long time, is very sharp at tuning. If you watch them guys in the pit area, they work on that part of the car a lot, the motor part, as far as tuning it. And that's like, I do it sometimes in a different direction. I like to work on gear ratio and things of that way, and some linkages on the way the throttle opens up. But it's and like with like Thornton, obviously Ricky's crew chief, which was Burroughs, had learned all that. Like, that was the good thing, that Ricky was surrounded with a guy that had a lot of experience driving and working on. People forget Burroughs won a Lucas Oil championship with Don O'Neill with the Clint Boyer stable. So it's not like like you get them people around and then they suggest things, and yeah, I think that's partly why Pierce is good. It's right now a very good dynamic of a guy that built everything himself, which is his dad, and lived through some hard times and understands maybe what to do with the motor, and then a kid that understands how to drive and has a good idea of how he wants his tires psyched and things of that nature. It's a successful program.
I was just curious, the motor situation there. Some people don't understand it, in sprint cars, it's a 410 sprint car. That's an outlaw, but it ain't just a certain cubic inch with y'all. There's multiple variations.
Yeah. We can do about anything. We could build a big block if you want, but they're way too heavy. The hardest thing to do is the most versatile number we seem to be at right now is like a 440 or a 450 range. It's hard to beat it. Listen, I'm telling you, 90% of the time that little standard bore 430 is an amazing running engine. It's hard to start 12th and 15th and come up through anymore. So there's certain areas, though, if you take it to a quarter-mile track in the Midwest, and it's not, April where it's stuck like Chuck, it's basically July or August, that motor is going to be the right engine to have. And I think some teams, are good at doing that. Some of the teams that I've been with, we kind of didn't. We had streamline engines. We had 5 of them, but they were all the same. And I think just like anything, racing's changed where some teams have options, and to be able to know when to do it is you got to be good at your job, and that's another thing. But if we were only going to run one place and you told me where it was, I could get you the right engine that would be the most successful.
I was about to ask that, coming from the guy with the the box trailer and the dually. Eldora is one of those types of tracks. I feel like it doesn't race like a Knoxville. It widens out. It to me, sometimes it races fast, but it races slow when the money matters, I think. What is
it races like a short track.
Well, yeah. What is? Have you changed your motor going to the World 100, or do you have a certain cubic inch that you bring there no matter what, and you work from there?
Yeah, we've with me, we've been around that 438, 440 program. We had Eldora is a unique place. The baddest motor doesn't always go around there the fastest, which is kind of weird to say because it is tacky some nights.
What's the shape of the track?
It's the shape of the track. A good running engine is what matters there. And honestly, like Eldora, a lot of it, you don't have to focus on having by far the baddest engine in the place, because qualifying isn't as important as everybody thinks, because all it does is put you behind all night long. And if there was never an invert wheel for Saturday, then qualifying would matter, and being a high point guy would matter. But when they have a big invert wheel most of the time, you're really better off being, I think it's like 16th to 21st in points. So,
well, you get to the A main, you got 100 laps. You want something that works the whole 100 as well.
Yeah. And then, but earlier in the week, like when they run them prelim nights, if you're fast time, that gets you inverted to 4th in a heat. If you don't even get the second, you don't get your time back. So then you're starting 16th, and the way the points break down, because they value qualifying so much, that like when you run 7th and get paid $1,200 for a prelim night, you're still like 3rd in points. So it's like, it almost doesn't do you any good to be fast time. It's almost you make more money and you're worse off in the points for the invert. And I think that's what like Bobby and a lot of guys. If you just look back, very rarely. Usually the guys that have been good, they hit the invert right because they make their car fast, and it might not be fast in qualifying, if that makes any sense.
Right, it's race trim.
Because Eldora is different than every track. You can run 100 and get there.
Yeah, you gotta race at Eldora. You can't just hot lap at Eldora.
Yeah, Eldora, Florence. You got to race it, and even really Batesville when it's right. There's a few places, man, when they're right, it doesn't matter. You can still come from, and you're on hard tires too, and that helps. Being on a hard right rear and soft right front leffer really makes us race better. But it's hard to convince people to put us on that.
This is how we ride. This is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher.